Hello and welcome back to the Creativity Playground. Today is our first episode in the Craft Roulette Inspiration series. So let's take a look at the craftroulette.live website. Okay, so here we are on the website, which I love, by the way. It was just redesigned and it looks very spiffy. So what we're going to do is go to the episode archive for episode number 105. Now, I was watching this live on March 25th and creating right along with them. So if you haven't watched Craft Roulette, Craft Roulette, make sure you do that. It's every Friday evening and it's amazing. But anyway, on episode number 105, the project was a 6x6 card. Colors were black and white +2, so you could choose any two other colors you wanted. The element was big and little, which that can be interpreted in a variety of ways. And then the random was polka dots. So let's take a look and see what I created. I started by gathering my materials. As soon as I heard black and white plus polka dot, I was like, I have the perfect paper for this. So I'm using my black and white polka dots. The two colors I'm adding are yellow and red. And I'm taking the yellow paper, cutting it down to 6x12, and then scoring at the 6-inch mark to make my 6x6 top folding card is the way I'm going to orient my card. And then I pulled out the this close to my heart stamp set that I've had for ages, and I'm like, okay, I finally have a reason to use this. So I cut my polka dot paper down to 5.5 by 5.5. So I have a little 1/4 inch all the way around on my card. And then in my Barely Arts glue, you can see I was having a little bit of trouble with it. Finally got it running, and adhering the polka dots to the yellow card base. And I did check to make sure that indeed it was opening from the bottom, and adhering that polka dot paper down and cleaning off my glue, just because obviously I was having trouble before. So I want to make sure I don't have trouble next time getting it. You couldn't really see what I was doing there, but I was seeing how large this text was so that I could grab a piece of paper that would fit. And then I just decided to use my MISTI to stamp the text. Now here I ended up having a little bit of trouble that you will see in just a moment. So I was stamping my text. Everything looked fine, or my sentiment. So I'm using my black ink and my MISTI, and you'll notice I don't have one of those cool tools that a lot of people have, so I just either pull down my sweatshirt sleeve, or in this case I'm using a paper towel to kind of rub it. But you can see that two things there. One, the text didn't stamp very clearly, and two, I put my finger right in the wet ink. Go figure. So I'm pulling out my re-inker, and it has been ages since I've never re-inked this pad, as a matter of fact. So I'm inking it for the very first time and trying it again. You can see that I turned the cardstock over, and I'm trying this again, and it actually works much better this time. And I'm just pressing down to make sure I get an even coverage, which it's better, but still it's not perfect. So I want to try it again. And so I just add a little bit more ink. And this time you'll notice that I'm really only applying pressure to the large text, just to make sure it is very dark, and there it is. So I'm just gonna set that aside, let it dry a bit while I clean my MISTI. Now, one thing you will probably notice on a lot of crafting videos is that they don't take the time to clean their stamps. Since I have already sped this up, I am leaving that in there because I think it's important to actually clean your stamps between use. I know not everybody feels that way, but I just feel like your stamp, the life of your stamp is going to last longer if you take care of it while you are working with it. So then I cut down the white a little bit and wanted to mat it with the red. And here I was trying to figure out, okay, am I going to have like a wide mat? Am I going to have the mat run all the way across? And I decided to just go with a little bit of a wider mat, and then I added some of the red to the edges so that the white core wouldn't show through, because this is close to my heart, cardstock. And so after inking that up, and there you can see my first stamping error, but all is well. All is well. It turned out fine. So now I am just adhering it to the red base, and then I will adhere the red to my main card. And this is a really simple card, and that's one of the things with Craft Roulette. As you are crafting along with them, they take about a half an hour, sometimes a little more than a half an hour to make the card. So obviously you don't have to work in that time crunch if you don't want to, because you have the whole weekend to submit your card on craftroulette.live. But I wanted to challenge myself to see that if I could finish it in the time frame that they give themselves, and I did. I was proud of me. All right, so here I am just going to make a couple of stamps of the pencil, and I actually decided to do 3 pencil stamps with my little scratch paper. And I kind of wish I would have paid a little bit more attention to where I placed this, because I ended up adding the other stamp set. Well, actually, now that in retrospect, it's the way I did it is fine. It's fine, because I just wanted to add some yellow to the pencil, and so I don't know that I could have done it differently other than perhaps just using a block would have been fine. But it all worked out. It all worked out. It's good. So I just added a little bit of yellow, and I tried there to see what second generation would look like, and it just wasn't deep enough. So I went ahead, and this is where I had a little bit of trouble because I had to keep readjusting this to try to figure out, is the yellow going to fit or not inside my little pencil? And eventually it does. I did have a lot more trouble with the eraser, but as you will see here in a moment, as much as I love the MISTI, there are sometimes when just using a block is best. Even so, using a block for this tiny little eraser, I still was having trouble, because I had to figure out the orientation of the little eraser. So I went back to the carrier sheet to kind of try to figure that out. Then I was trying to line it up, and that's how I would have to do it if I was using the MISTI. And so this is actually much easier to simply ink it up right on the block and then go ahead and stamp it on my little pencil. So for the first one, I did 3rd generation stamping. For the second one, I did 2nd generation, and I decided that I prefer the 2nd generation. So again, I cleaned and put my stamp away. And now I am fussy cutting out these little pencils. Kind of the beauty of this is that there are so many straight lines on these little pencils that it really does not take very long to cut these out at all. For those of you that don't like fussy cutting, clearly you could use your scan and cut if you wanted to on this. But again, I just felt like it did not warrant the amount of time that it would have taken me to set up my scan and cut, since I don't have a place for that in my craft room yet. One of these years I will find a place so it can forever live in my craft room. But what I would say is that on these little pencils, I had cut out 3 and I didn't really know exactly how I was going to use them. And later on, you'll see that I struggled with that a bit. Notice how I am really turning my paper, keeping my scissors straight, turning my paper as I am cutting out each of those little pencils. Now I had to figure out where I wanted to place the pencils, and so I started moving them around. I definitely knew that I wanted a couple of them in the lower corner. I had no idea what I was going to do with the 3rd one, but I did decide that I preferred the 3rd generation stamping for the eraser better, and so that's why I set the other one aside. Now I'm using this foam tape and cutting it in half the long way so that it will fit nicely onto my pencil. And so this is for the first one that is going down. And I placed that, and I didn't really pay attention when I was placing that. This is not where I had originally wanted it to go. I wanted it to be more angled originally, but you know, when you're dealing with foam tape, I was not going to pill it up, so it was fine. And then I left a little bit of space so that it could overlap the pencil that already had foam in the center. And so it was starting to, you know, come together. And again, I was like, oh, where am I going to put this? Eventually, I did put it inside the card, but for right now, I just moved it off to the side to get my embellishments. And I had several to choose from, but I ended up going with the little gems, the sparkles, and I was trying to figure out where I wanted to put them. The key when you're placing embellishments is to practice the rule of thirds and place them down in visual triangles. So I started doing that, and I placed one by the pencil, and I was figuring out where's my triangle going to be. And then I'm like, oh wow, I don't really have room for a triangle. I mean, I guess I could have put it to the lower left of text, but I was like, whatever, it's just a card. I'm just going to leave it as is. I did notice that I had a little bit of black ink smudge, so I got my mono sand eraser to get rid of that. But then I decided this is fine. This is good enough. So that is my project for Craft Roulette episode 105, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode and will come back and join me again for another in my Craft Roulette inspiration series. Until then, here are a couple more videos for you to enjoy, and remember, make time for creative play because your mental health matters.